Well, this is the band I went to see Friday.
Nice. What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about all of the streaming shows and movies that have been adapted from your favorite comic books. I'm with my good friend Brian, rocking his Poison the Well shirt. And Brian, man, there is so much excitement about Echo. There's so much interest in it. Do you know how many views our last episode got?
0.
4, man. Come on, don't
4,
worry.
okay. I'll take
4. Yeah, we're growing. Exponential growth. You know, it's funny because they talk about like comic book fatigue and they talk about people not being interested in Marvel anymore, right? I remember Eckhart's Ladder, who's a Star Wars channel, he was saying that like interest in Star Wars has kind of gone down. And then I can't remember another YouTuber who said this, but they said that like their Marvel videos aren't getting as many views. I think it might have been Mr. Sunday. Do you think that might be a thing?
100%, yeah. I think that, like I said in the past, they hit a lot of the super high points of comic book history with some of the movies they've produced. And I think that they're just kind of keeping it going, thinking that they need to stay relevant by continuously releasing content. But I mean, think about the the gap between the original Star Wars trilogy and then the prequels, like how many years that was. And I don't think I've ever seen a level of hype built up before those prequels. And, I think even with the flaws of the first movie, like it was so hyped up that it couldn't even the fact that it wasn't that great of a movie you didn't really realize it until the second one,
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's just a constant flow. We're just used to it now. That's it. And we're not hitting any home runs anymore. We're just kind of getting on base maybe at best. So
yes.
That's it.
Yes. And we are the guys that are talking about the people just getting on base. Oh, look, he got on base. Great. Yeah. So, what's funny? Did you by any chance see the honest trailer for the Marvels today?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay. In there's one line where the trailer guy says, the fans have realized that you could spend $200 a year at least just to keep up with the MCU. And I did the math, and it's like if there's 3 movies, that's at least $10 each, right? Maybe more. And then all the right, exactly. That's if you don't buy any popcorn or anything like that, or see it in 3D. Then there's also the idea that you're paying what, like 7 something, 8 something a month for Disney Plus, and that's 12 months a year.
Yeah, it's more than that now, I think, too. That's like if you like pre-bought the year, you get that little bit of a discount, so it's like $7-8 a month. But if you're doing it a monthly, I think it's like $12 or $13 now, something like that.
Oh, Jesus,
it's insane. Yeah, and it's such a weird thing because to me, I look at Disney Plus. I generally only watch whatever Marvel or Star Wars show is currently on. Like I don't go back and rewatch any of the other things. I mean, sometimes I'll throw one of the movies on, but like the movies I'm throwing on are the ones I actually bought. But I don't really do that anymore either.
Oh, wow.
So so I feel torn between needing to see these things, but feel like I'm overpaying for so little content. Like I think there's too. I mean, this is a very common sentiment among people, but there's just too many streaming services, and it's not. Most of them are not worth the price.
Yes. I mean, it's cool when you go back and you show your kids movies that they haven't seen yet. Like if my kids haven't seen Star Wars movies or if they haven't seen some of the MCU movies, it's like, okay, well, it's right here. I can show you. But my kids aren't even that interested in either of those 2 franchises.
Well, yeah, think about it. Think about it from a kid's point of view. It's like, hey, there's this thing that has 30 movies. You want to watch them?
Yeah. You want all of them? Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, I think we've complained a bit about this show or this whole scenario. Let's go on to what was happening last time. Do you want to do a sort of like a previously on recap for us?
Previously on recap? I have to remember back that far.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, the show starts with, with a recap of the events of Hawkeye, and we get some kind of glimpses into the past of Echo when she was working for the Kingpin. And then we get a view into Maya's kind of present day situation where she returns to her hometown of what is it, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Something like that. Hey,
Right.
white guys vaguely remembering things. We're hitting it. We're hitting our quota.
Especially with ethnic names. Oh, we're
Yep.
fucked.
Yep. Cancels. So Maya returns to her hometown. She kind of sees some people. She avoids some others. And she has a goal of kind of taking down the Kingpin's crime empire, even though she believes he's dead.
Yes.
That kind of continues on. And at the end of the, she sabotages a train full of Kingpin's weapons and blows up a weapon factory or armory or something. And then, the Kingpin shows up at the end of the third episode. That's where we last finished off here. So the Kingpin shows up, and she just now realizing that he's not dead.
Yes. The Kingpin comes back to Oklahoma, and each of these episodes they usually feature a prologue where we see a Choctaw woman, and she's able to access this power that's been passed down through generations. In the first few, we saw this woman that was in a cave, and she was sort of with these like special creatures that look like they could be like the Eternals or another kind of Marvel godly creature. The next one was like a girl who was trying to follow in her father's footsteps. He was a Native American law enforcement agent working for the Light Horsemen. She was able to sort of expertly hit things with like a sling and an arrow or like a slingshot or something. And then in this episode, in episode 3, which is called...
Two. Okay, so 3 was the Light Horseman. 2 was the I forget the character's name, but the stickball game.
Oh, yes. I forgot the Choctaw stickball. That's right. So in episode 3, it's called Taloa, and that is actually Echo's mom or Maya's mom. We don't get a prologue about her. We get a prologue about Echo as a kid. Did you like that sequence?
Yeah, it kind of established. So the sequence we're talking about is Maya is leaving school, and she's going to be picked up by Uncle Fisk in a limo, and she's trying to communicate with an ice cream vendor about wanting ice cream, and he can't because he doesn't know sign or anything like that. So the Kingpin just gets up and beats the shit out of him.
Yes.
I guess to show kind of how fiercely loyal he is to Maya and how he sees her as a daughter.
Yes. I actually really liked that sequence just because it's so brutal. What I liked about Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal of the Kingpin is he's kind of soft-spoken and he tries to be like, like composed, but you can always tell that there's this like rage inside of him, right? He just like lets it out. He's covered in blood and he says, I don't want Maya to see me, but then Maya does see him. And Maya just goes over and just kicks the ice cream man.
Yeah, which is weird because we've been talking about how Maya's goal has been kind of a villainous goal in a way. Yeah. I mean, I guess she sort of, I don't know, like the overall ending, like it's still sort of ambiguous, what she is. I guess is a little more on the positive side, but not completely necessarily.
I mean, we'll see, and we can get to that part when we get to episode 5. Yeah. That sequence, that prologue sequence with Maya and the Kingpin, it also has her like as an adult, and he's saying, okay, now it's time for you to start to use your skills, right? When he says that, he's with a sign language interpreter that's been basically saying everything that Maya's been signing to him. He then dismisses that woman. She walks, off screen, walks down a hallway. You see like this big plastic wall, right? And then she's like, no, I won't tell him anything. I didn't see anything. And then you just hear her get shot after she screams.
That's on par for Kingpin. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty fucked up. He just keeps eating. He doesn't show any kind of emotion on his face. And it kind of really plays with that idea that, Maya couldn't hear that because she's deaf.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, she essentially couldn't know what just happened. She did have a look on her face like she thought that might happen, though.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, she's seen the operation. She knows what he does. She knows violence. So I mean, I wouldn't think if she did see it, she wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, right. But it was pretty awful. It was like one of the worst things I've seen on a Marvel show.
I agree.
It did say, well, I don't know if it said it for episode 4, but episode 5 said viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure why.
Right, because
I feel like that was more, the 4 was more appropriate for that, I think.
Yeah. Episode 5 was like maybe the most tame out of all of them.
Yeah.
All right, we keep sounding like we want to talk about episode 5. Let's keep going through episode 4. So this one has a lot of family moments, a lot of moments where Maya is interacting with her family members. She interacts with Chula, who is her grandmother, after she has a vision. She has a vision that's pretty much in line with all the visions that we've seen in the prologues, and she's seeing all these different women. She essentially like goes into a trance, and her uncle brings her to her grandmother's house.
Yeah, and this is the first time they're meeting since she's back in town.
Mm-hmm.
And something I learned here too is that I didn't realize that the mom was also deaf.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So that kind of maybe fills that little plot hole of why everyone was still remembering all their sign language 20 years later. They had been doing it longer than that. So that actually helped me a little bit. Appreciate the detail. But she basically explains the visions, and she tells her the story about how her mother was born and how she was kind of like went to this like midwife, and they did this like kind of almost mystical ceremony sort of thing for her birth rather than in a hospital, because there was going to be complications with the birth.
Right. So, even though it wasn't in the prologue, they were still telling Taloa's story, basically, right? Like how she was born. We find out in episode 5, has healing abilities. Could
we slightly elaborate on how they address that? It's the episode. The scene starts with young Maya with a slingshot shooting a bird out of the air.
Yes.
Like, look, Mom, I found this bird on the ground. I didn't do anything to it.
Yes. Yeah. Maya, she's kind of fucked up from the beginning.
Dexter here.
Yes. Yeah, maybe she's not that good a person, huh?
The mom sees right through it and comes clean immediately. So, and hopefully she wasn't, serving up small animals for her to kill, as she grew up a little further, like Dexter.
Jesus, yeah. Maya, she's pretty deadly and mean through most of the show, and in the 5th episode, we kind of see this slight transformation. It's both superficial and emotional. But before we get to that, she is confronted by the Kingpin. We actually pick up where the last episode ended off. The Kingpin has this special kind of contact lens that gives him augmented reality. So when Maya signs, it sounds like she's talking to him. When he talks, it looks like it's sign language.
Yes. Well, it's a contact that she wears.
Yeah, but I'm assuming that he has some kind of contact himself.
Yeah, it looks like the eye patch he's wearing has something there that helps. Maybe that's transmitting it somehow. I don't know, but the point is they force a contact lens on her, and then she's able to see these kind of virtual signs from what he's saying.
Yeah. See, I think that he does have a contact in his good eye, because he takes that patch off before they start talking.
That's true. That is true.
And see, I was going to ask you about that patch, because he takes it off and it's like, okay, he got shot in the fucking face, first off.
Yeah.
I guess it just like fucked up around here and didn't like.
No, they said he had eye reconstruction surgery. Well, maybe that was the comic, actually.
Okay.
I mean, it's a comic book. So, I mean, things are ridiculous. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually intended him to be shot through the eye, through the back of the head, all that, or maybe he just got lodged in his head. And then they still reconstruct him in a way that it barely looks like a disfigurement there, almost like Tyrion in Game of Thrones. He in the book he gets his nose chopped off, but like in the show it's just like a little scar.
Right. So I don't know what the hell that patch is supposed to do, if it's like supposed to help heal his eye or something like that, but it had some kind of electronics on it.
Yeah, it did.
So what did you think of that scene between him and Maya?
So first of all, I have to point out that the cookies he brings from an actual bakery in New York City, Levain Bakery.
Nice.
I've had the cookie a long time ago, and actually tried to make a version of that cookie myself, and failed miserably about a month ago.
Oh shit! Okay.
So that's a stupid detail that no one needs to know. So yeah, it's interesting here because, you'd think that the Kingpin, with all this pent up rage, would not want to be like apologizing and offering Maya, part of the Empire. Like he said, he wants to make her the Queen Pin.
Right.
I think he said that, but she said that later on.
She does say that. Right.
It's weird. It's a weird kind of thing, I guess. I'm assuming in this universe, or even if this is the Netflix universe, that he does not have a son, so the Rose does not exist, and this is his only quote unquote child here. So I guess maybe he makes special exception here because he sees her as family. Because I imagine that anybody else goes to these lengths that they're dead without a second thought.
Yeah.
If he beats up an ice cream cone guy for not knowing sign language, I imagine much worse would happen for someone shooting him in the eye.
Yeah, I remember when he like fucking decapitates that guy with the car door in like the first episode of Daredevil.
Yeah, shit like that. Part of me is it finds it a little hard to swallow, I guess. Like she didn't just disobey, like she shot him in the face.
yeah, in the eye. Yeah. It's interesting that you say the thing about the son, because I know he has a son that's like a super villain too. In the Daredevil show, he falls in love with that woman that's like the Kingpin's woman that he loves so much. What's her name? Like Vanessa, right? So I can't remember. I don't think she dies in the show from where I watched up to, but I'm assuming that she probably does die down the road.
She does.
Yeah. So then like they don't conceive a kid, right?
In this universe, I guess not. But But there was a child in the Spider-Verse version with Kingpin.
Yes.
So
and that kid died too. Yeah. So is the Rose the son of Vanessa, or is it like a different woman?
I believe it is. I'm not 100% sure about that.
Yeah. All these women, man, they want to get with this gigantic, rage-filled, bald man.
Hey, he's got that money. I mean, he's got money that can fix eyeballs.
That's right. He can fix eyeballs, but he can't fix his relationship with Echo. Yeah. And, you brought up the cookies before. I'm actually really glad that you did, because I noticed he offers her the cookies after she says that she poured out this expensive alcohol down the drain, right? But then she kind of looks and she's excited about the cookies. She doesn't eat one. Then when she goes to see her grandmother later in the episode, the grandmother gives her cookies too. And
okay, yeah.
And I think she eats one too. So it's like symbolic. Obviously one of the themes of this show is you have your natural family, which is connected to your lineage, which goes back, generations. And then you have like this sort of adoptive family that might be a bad family. It's connected to crime, and you have to kind of choose the path. Maya ultimately, spoilers for episode 5, chooses her family's side, but she's kind of on the fence for a while.
When she leaves the meeting with her grandmother, one of the last things she says is, like, you abandoned me, like I was a child and you left me, you abandoned me. And then the grandmother kind of says, like, no, I abandoned your dad, and I was afraid to be around you because you remind me so much of my daughter. So they admit fault, and that people screwed up here. So I did like that detail.
Yeah. It's weird because the Kingpin kind of admits fault too, right? Like, does he ever say, I'm sorry for killing your father? Does he say that?
I don't think he did.
He literally didn't kill his father. Ronan did.
He ordered it. Yeah.
Yeah. He like set him up to be killed. Yeah.
Yeah. He basically tipped off Hawkeye about where this operation was here. Yeah. And then he killed them all. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe he doesn't outright say, "I'm sorry for your father's death." He does take ownership of it, and then he basically, at a later scene, he's at a casino, and Maya comes to the casino, and he goes to give her the hammer that he used to kill the dad.
Yeah, this was weird too. Like, I understand. I can almost understand most of the time, this kind of blind love for this surrogate daughter that he sees, but he basically said, this is the hammer I used to kill my dad to be free. So take the hammer and kill me so you can be free. Like,
yes,
that seems a little extreme.
Yes. Well, so now maybe we can transition to episode 5, because I think that what the show really tries to shove in there at the end is the idea that the Kingpin is filled with rage based upon how he was raised, the misfortune he had in his youth, just like Maya had a lot of horrible circumstances in her youth. And it's a matter of like healing and love that could fix him. Now, Maya gets that healing and love in this episode. In this episode, which is called Maya, which is like just about her. The prologue is that scene that you mentioned before with the woodpecker, right? And then the mom is able to heal the woodpecker and bring it back to life. The mom, like, I was thinking there was going to be a scene where it showed that Maya actually was going to die in the car as well, and that the mom like used her healing power to heal her and save her and then die. Did you think that was going to happen?
I thought that was going to happen too. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of those sequences where like she's with her mom and the mom like essentially like touches her and sort of like heals her of her rage?
It felt very kind of ambiguous, I think. I feel like they just kind of, I don't want to say pulled it out of nowhere, but it felt out of place, I would say.
Yeah.
I think this show would have been better served without the mystic side of it.
Yeah.
We were talking about earlier in our, private conversations about a certain video that you sent me about, the MCU changing powers and reasons for that. And I mean, to me, they do change Maya's powers. I mean, Maya has kind of like a photographic memory, and she can copy combat styles just by seeing them one time.
Like Taskmaster.
Much like Taskmaster, yeah. And in this, they kind of went the route of giving her kind of powers that are sort of tied to her heritage.
Yeah.
So, which kind of leads me to believe that, they, like, that guy, what was that guy's name?
So his name's Benny, and his channel is called Comic Storian. This particular episode was The Problem With. He has like a series like that. Yeah.
So I think that, he mentions, who was clamoring for this show, who wanted this show. And I think this is, I don't want to say pandering, but this is Disney's kind of attempt to try to kind of get some people maybe on the fringe that of their normal fans, that try to get them interested. So they're appealing to an indigenous people that's a minority, maybe to try to convert them into new fans, because they feel much like Star Wars, that the fans they have already, and they don't really care about them as much. So they want to try and find new fans. So I think I sort of like the intention of kind of tying in her heritage to her powers that they're giving her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think this would have been so much better as simply a street level show. And it didn't quite go as super far into the mystical stuff as I was expecting. But still, I still think it would have been better without it.
Yeah. There's a bit to unpack with what you just said. One thing I was thinking of as I was watching the show is there's certain stereotypes or cliches that are in a lot of movies. I mean, in all types of media. And one of them is the mystical Native American. It's that the idea of like all Native American people are like spiritual and they have some kind of connection to spirits and the supernatural.
Like Kahori.
Like who?
Kahori from What If?
Oh, yeah, yes. And so I think that like Marvel in general, when they do this thing that they're trying to do, where they're trying to appeal to a greater audience, and somehow by like appealing to more niche groups, right? Because essentially you're saying minorities, like, so there's less people. Yeah. They're appealing to those people, and they often do these things where they're like, oh, you think all of us people of this color or this background do this, but we actually do the opposite, right? Like they do a lot of that. But I do feel like that What If episode with Kahori and then this is like going the opposite, where it's like, okay, yes, we are mystical Native American people,
It's just kind of playing into the stereotype.
Yeah. Now, Benny's video where he talks about changing the character's powers, he said that like Echo, the character, first of all, he sort of didn't have enough information, because he said that Echo basically showed up recently when Charles Soule wrote Daredevil, which Charles Soule writing Daredevil is like, I don't know, maybe less than 10 years ago. And then, Echo's been around since I think maybe the 90s or early 2000s.
99, right? I believe.
99. Okay, thank you. So, like, she's been around for a while, and I think Benny must have just completely forgot about the whole Ronin thing in New Avengers.
Yeah, and she does appear initially in Daredevil. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I'm kind of glad you brought this up because this is one of those things where it's like, Benny's right. He said the show is kind of mediocre, and that's kind of how I feel in general. It's like, oh, it was all right. It was good. But it brings up all these different topics that you and I can discuss. Like, I think when it comes to profit, Marvel as an organization barely makes any profit with the comics, if at all, right? Because they sell like 10,000 to 20,000 issues for a book, like Benny said.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But then, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's for a good book.
Right. In the 90s when we were growing up, there was books that sold like millions or 1 million copies, right? But now it's like 10,000, 20,000 is like good. Maybe 100,000 is like a very special book. Anyway, I feel like the money that Marvel makes is based upon the merchandise that they have in Target of like the heroes. Like they might be based on like cartoon shows like Spidey and His Amazing Friends. It's in like the pajamas and all that kind of shit. Then it's in like people that play Snap and put money into it. And all of these things just essentially need characters to put on things. Did you agree with me on that? Or
yeah. No, the comic books are an intellectual property investment.
Yeah.
It's a source that they're paying minimal amount of money to barely make even, and then they're using that to fuel a merchandising empire. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And so I think that when they make a show about Echo, I think it's just kind of like, well, we need to have more female characters. We need to have characters of different ethnicities. We need to have characters that might have disabilities. Oh, she counts all those boxes, right?
Yeah, it really feels like a lot of the shows lately have been checking boxes. I don't want to say too many horrible things about like Miss Marvel and She-Hulk, but they checked boxes. Marvel was highly criticized for not having a female-led movie until
Captain
Marvel, and then not giving Black Widow a lead role until she was dead.
Right. So they kind of overcompensate, and then you get these things that like just people aren't interested in. And I think that the lack of interest also leads to the lack of like creativity or risk taking, because they just sort of want to make something that people will watch and enjoy, but it's not something where they're like, okay, well, this is this special character. This is Wolverine. We haven't shown him yet, so we have to make this special movie. We're gonna get this special director to make this movie. It's like, here's this character. I hope you like him.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like the special people don't want anything to do with it anymore.
Yeah.
The high profile actors, directors, they're kind of done with it. They don't want to be wasted on these kind of lesser tier characters or anything like that. And what they are doing is they're taking up and coming people that have shown, proficiency in other projects that but are still not super well known.
Really well put. Yeah. So with a character to showcase like Echo, I wanted to go back to Benny's point. He kept comparing it to Ms. Marvel and the fact that like in the comics, she can stretch. That's her power. Like she gets big or she can shrink. She can stretch. And they change it to where she has hard light powers in the MCU. Now, go ahead.
I have to say that I think I wrote this to you. I feel like they changed the powers there. The explanation for that is that to make her powers closer to Captain Marvel herself.
Right.
In the comics, she's just a fan of Captain Marvel. Powers are not related to her in any way. She's just like, I like Carol Danvers. I'm going to wear a costume that looks like her old costume.
Right.
So now she has powers that are kind of big, with the negabands, or is that what they call them, the negabands?
I think
they
so,
kind of
yes.
combine the quantum bands. No, it was the quantum bands. They combined the quantum bands and the negabands together, sort of. And, those were used by Quasar, who was a Kree, and all that. So that ties it more to that Captain Marvel Kree heritage sort of thing. So it gets a little bit closer than the comics do. So I see the reasoning for doing that.
Yeah. But like with that, right? With that being said, Echo, do you think that it matters that they changed this particular character's powers?
I I, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I do think that it would have been better if they stuck with the original, because I think they could have just focused more on the street level stuff and, fighting criminals and breaking up crime syndicates, and less on the kind of mystical elements there. But I guess it's weird because they're pushing this mystical stuff, which seems a little more family friendly, but this is a mature or R-rated TV show, so I'm very confused by it all. I kind of disagree with his point that powers matter. I actually don't think they matter as much as he thinks.
Yeah,
he kept bringing up Spider-Man, and is Spider-Man the same if he's just Peter Parker and he's does all the same things, has all the same people, but he just doesn't have spider powers? It really, truthfully, it doesn't matter that he has powers. It doesn't matter what the powers are. I mean, he could have been some other animal or insect or something like that, and maybe it would have looked as cool, but he still could have had all the same relationships and experiences, and still could have had great power with comes great responsibility, all that. So I don't think the power set matters, just the fact that you have powers.
Yeah,
for the most part. So I don't think it matters, but I think in this case with Echo, it would have been better served if they would have focused on her existing powers and changed the show to be less mystical.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point. It's kind of like with powers, the superficiality of it, of like what it looks like, isn't as important as sort of the level that it puts you on, because there's certain characters like Superman who are like in a league of their own, and so that defines their character because they're godlike. Spider-Man is extremely strong and fast, but he's not on that level. So if they adjusted how strong he was, or how fast he was, that would change him, I think. But if it's like he, instead of shooting webs, he I don't know, fucking threw out some kind of grappling hook claw thing and swung like that.
What if he was Butterfly Man, and he fired butterflies and flew around, would that change that? I mean, much in that? It probably wouldn't. It wouldn't look as cool, but
right. And yeah, so the aesthetic of it, what it comes out as, what the power comes out as, I think doesn't matter as much, but how powerful they are. Or how vulnerable it makes them, how invulnerable it makes them. That does go with the person's personality. Because Wolverine's powers, for instance, his personality is kind of based on the fact that he could just take all this abuse.
Yeah.
But you brought up a really, really great point. I really wanted to focus on that too, which is they decided instead of going to the street level, they should go, more mystical. What does that sound like?
Every Moon Knight,
right? Exactly.
Everything in the MCU,
right. It's kind of like this Disney thing, which I think that the MCU itself, the movies, are even starting to kind of reflect the shows versus the shows trying to be like the movies, because now it is all becoming the sort of generic mystical shit, whereas there's a lot more science in the other shows. Now everything is there's some kind of special magical MacGuffin, or people have this magical power, right?
Yeah, that's an excellent point, actually. Maybe that is part of the theme. And maybe the first, the first, what do they call it?
Phase.
The first phase, was more science based. Maybe this is just more magic based. Maybe that's intentional.
Yeah. I think yeah, that's a really good point, because the science fiction-y stuff, Captain Marvel or the Marvels and Guardians of the Galaxy, that feels less common as opposed to this show, Moon Knight, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Even fucking Spider-Man No Way Home, the main thing is magic.
Yep.
Oh my God, we're on to something here, man.
Yeah, and that was the first movie of this, or was it the last movie of the last? I don't remember.
Who the fuck remembers anymore? But anyway, so Echo is confronted by the Kingpin. He's got the grandmother. He's got her friend that she loves, Thank you so much. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, all of them get superpowers. The grandmother
Yeah,
fucking
that was a little much.
yep.
And we kind of have to comment on Maya's costume. She kind of stumbles into a costume that her grandmother was making, and she wears it. And as you said in your notes, it kind of works with her kind of blending in with this festival that's going on, this big powwow that's going on. But otherwise, it's kind of a little not a great costume.
No, it's not. And I mean, I feel like that it's almost like people will be like, we're culturally insensitive, but it's like, it's not that. It's like, it just looks like it was made by a grandmother, you know?
Yeah, it does. I wish they would have. I mean, the clothes she was wearing sort of had that little sun insignia sort of thing that she
Right.
has in her costume there. But I wish they would have had something with the wrap bandages on her arms. And
Yeah.
something they didn't do was the handprint on the face. They didn't do that at all, right?
No, it's on this fucking picture behind us.
Yeah,
too.
what's up with that? I mean, I know that the symbolism behind that is with her origin, and her father left a bloody handprint on her face when he was killed, when he was asking Kingpin to watch over her.
Oh,
Which I don't
know
understand.
that.
I have to go look that up because that's confusing. But there is a symbolism behind that, and they kind of can't do that, I guess, because Kingpin wasn't physically there for her father's death. So maybe that's why, but it is a little confusing how they have this, the image we have in the background here with Maya with the handprint there, which is Echo's kind of, most defining physical appearance trait,
Yeah, I think that what I used might have actually been like a fan-made picture.
Oh, okay.
I don't think any of the promotional art has that thing on her face.
Well, I'm going to look that up for our next video.
Okay, good.
Do a little addendum there. And then finally, just to end everything off here, Maya, uses her power to heal the Kingpin's heart, which is very ambiguous. We don't really understand what that means or does. We're not even sure it has an effect, other than that he stops attempting to kill her at the moment and escapes. Yeah. And then the stinger at the end, the mid-credit scene, is that he's on a plane going back to New York, and there's a New York One news story about the New Yorkers need a fighter, a real gritty fighter to run for mayor. And who can fill that void? The Kingpin.
Mayor Kingpin, yes.
Mayor
Do you
Kingpin.
like that?
I do. And, I sort of share your concerns about, I feel like we need to have the Kingpin around a lot more and a lot more things. But, we sort of did have him a little bit more than what we've seen, because, you didn't finish Daredevil 2. I didn't finish. We didn't watch The Defenders, and we didn't watch Daredevil 3. So he has been around a little bit more.
Yeah.
So maybe it kind of works, I think.
Yeah, but okay. That's kind of a tricky thing to address, because he's so essentially, I don't first of all, I don't know if he interacted with like Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Danny Rand. I think that when the Defender show came out, it was just like them versus the Hand, I think, as far as I know.
Okay, yeah, as I said, I didn't watch The Defenders. I imagined he was going to be in it, but maybe he was in jail that whole time. I think he probably was.
Yeah. So for me, it's much more impactful when the Kingpin has had multiple interactions with various street level guys, including Spider-Man. I think the Kingpin was a Spider-Man villain first before he was a Daredevil villain.
I believe so.
Yeah. So that's why him being mayor is like Lex Luthor becoming Superman, where it's like, oh my God, it's this guy. Lex Luthor obviously always fights Superman, and we've seen certainly a lot of movies with Lex in it. But in the comics, Lex Luthor has been in the Legion of Doom, and he's fought so many superheroes. So when he becomes the president, it's this much bigger deal versus just this Superman villain is the president.
Yeah.
So it's that guy from Daredevil is going to be the mayor. It'd be I don't know. I mean, it's good because Vincent D'Onofrio is so great, and he's really great on the show, and Charlie Cox is great with him. But it just the reason why I worked in the comics is because they all know the Kingpin.
Yeah. Agreed.
So that's it for Echo. What do you have to say about this phase and this show?
Much like Benny said, I kind of think it was just mediocre. It's just kind of there. I don't feel like I wasted my time necessarily, but I would have a hard time recommending someone watch the show.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that makes two of us. And I just realized that my job interview is at 4:45. Shit, I totally forgot. I was like, oh, it's at 5.
That's why I'm wrapping up, man.
Oh, good job. Okay. Anyway, It's a part-time job. If anyone sketches, it's my regular job. It's not. I'm not leaving my full-time job. No one gives a shit for the 4 people that are watching. Anyway, you do. Brian does. Yes. So make sure you guys subscribe to Comic Books Transformed. And next time, Brian and I will be talking about
Masters of the Universe.
Fuck yeah. All right. We'll see you.